to you down the road, okay?
No worries. I have my tea here, so I'm fine. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And before we get started with questions for the mayor, I want to acknowledge Jim Dunphy and his team at the South Shore Bank. They have been sponsoring our breakfast since the beginning, back in 2017, when the real ones were going on. And now that the virtual ones are going on, they continue to step up and sponsor these events for us. So we thank our friends at South Shore Bank for being committed to our community and great partners for the chamber. Mr. Mayor, so I guess we'll start off with the vaccine progress, both locally and what you're hearing statewide. As we know, the state's had a few stumbles getting out of the gate, but the city has made some great progress. So maybe you can tell our viewers who are interested in knowing how the city's progressing, but also kind of trying to figure out when they might be in line and how they can get a vaccine if they qualify.
Sure. Well, first of all, you know, a quick look back. We're almost a year now in this pandemic, and early on, you know, we brought a lot of folks together in the city to try to deal with as it played out, because there was no playbook for this. And so, Timmy, I want to thank you and your team, because you've been a partner throughout the whole process. You know, getting the grants out, getting the word out, the rent assistance that we did through some of the federal money. I mean, I don't want to rehash everything because I know we've talked about it, but it's certainly noteworthy to, again, let's not forget the successes we've had in getting through this. And I kind of I kind of feel for the governor in a sense, because he's certainly getting beat up pretty good on the rollout, and you know, there's certainly legitimacy to some of the criticism. But let's not forget from the start of this, the lives he saved with the changes he made in the nursing homes and right out of the box. So it's been a tough year for everybody, and we got to keep that in mind. The other thing let's keep in mind is, I saw a stat that 130 countries around the world do not have one vaccine yet. You know, so I know people are getting frustrated and impatient, but you know, we're leading the world in getting them out. So I think that's fair to say. So as all of you know, we really partnered with Manet Community Health early on. We provided all the logistics for tents and what was needed for testing, and then that partnership grew and tightened. And as the vaccines started to come out, we partnered with Manet to oversee the vaccines themselves. But again, we were providing logistics. We put 180 Old Colony Ave, which we purchased this past year, which is going to be a learning center, but we won't be under construction until probably mid to late spring. So we had this beautiful facility that availed itself to providing a testing site and a vaccination site. So Manet has just been tremendous. So early on, the city was allotted X amount through the Department of Public Health, the vaccines, and Manet was allotted X amount. So putting them together, we came up with the system that we did. We had a call center that worked very well out of an emergency operating center. That would be something I would have suggested to the governor. I'm not sure why they didn't involve MEMA in some of this, because it's set up for that kind of magnitude of events. But so far, so good. We've done, I think last week we did 1,200 at that location. In addition to that, Quincy Housing Authority is partnering with the Stop and Shop Pharmacy Group, and they're going to be going into every building. The tenants won't have to leave the building. They'll stand by their doorway or sit by the doorway, and they'll come door to door. Additionally, we've been working with MassCon, the State Firefighters Association, as well as Brewster Ambulance. So we use them as a pilot program, if you will. 2 weeks ago, we did Granite Place, 2 buildings, and we did some stuff on School Street, busing them over, again, to go after the you know, those folks that can't get out. I mean, those with the most susceptible, that age group, the 75 and over. So I think we've been pretty robust on the response. Now, I also understand this has been a long year. People are anxious to get their vaccination, and I do think the biggest challenge has been getting the allotment down from the federal government to the state, so the localities can get into people's arms. If we got triple the amount, we get triple on the street, we wouldn't miss a beat, because we're set up for it. Boston Scientific has also been in touch with us and the state. They've offered their facility to be a regional location. We got Lowe's, which is owned by the MBTA, that has been talked about as a regional site right off the highway. So we're still in discussions with the governor and his staff, as well as DPH, on helping to get these out more quickly. So
it really comes down to supply, though, right now, right?
It does. It really does.
Yeah. And from what I'm hearing, that supply could very well increase over the next 3 or 4 weeks. So that's going to help us a lot in terms of turning this over and getting down sort of to the categories where we qualify, Tom, you know?
Yeah, I think that, well, you are a little older than me, Tim, but yeah, probably in the same
Thank you
range.
for reminding everyone of that.
But I think by mid-spring, most of those categories that are most concerning, most susceptible, will be taken care of. That's why I get confused sometimes with Dr. Fauci. He's saying on one hand, everyone in the country should be done by July, but we won't be back to normal till Christmas. I kind of miss that. I don't know what that means, but there's a lot of moving parts in this. We're working hard on the school side. Next week, we bring back grade 1 through 3 in full, 5 days. We're going to watch that closely and then quickly expand. Under the state law, we still have to provide remote learning because there are people that just aren't comfortable for whatever reason. So, I believe we got to get the kids back in the buildings. I really do. And I've said this before publicly, and it's certainly worth repeating. I believe that, the look back on this time period and the mental health issues that are going to be noted in the data that they put together is going to be remarkable. And whether it's the anxiety issues, addiction issues, abuse issues, I get on the line. For some kids, we're an urban district. We have a great school system, and we've got every demographic in the city. But the classroom for some kids is their safe zone. And those kids, that's where they flourish. That's where their escape is. So, there's a lot of issues that we need to weigh. And I think looking back on this, there's going to be, I think, a critique that, the concern about the physical outweighed the concern about the mental health issues. And the mental health issues are going to emanate and manifest themselves in many different ways that we're going to be dealing with, I think, for years. Right. Having said that, there was no easy solution on this stuff. I get it. But that's why I believe, and I was saying in September, they're not getting sick. I understand that they can carry it. Got to get them back in for all those reasons. And we're making progress. So I certainly tip my hat to Kevin Mulvey and the team at the schools. They've done remarkable work.
Yeah, it's encouraging too, because there aren't many systems, if any, in the state that are planning to go full time, 5 days a week, right?
Yeah, there might be some towns, but we've been way ahead of the urban districts in every step. Most started remote in September and stayed that way. We quickly went into hybrid, bringing kids in 4 days a week with the middle day of different cohorts and at least getting the experience. We follow the guidelines, Tim, but we don't wait necessarily for every direction. There's a lot of common sense, I think, that's lacking right now in our world, certainly in our country, and just got to roll our sleeves up, figure it out. And right. Sometimes we make mistakes, but I'd rather make a few mistakes than not doing anything. And it's an issue that you got parents on one side saying, I'm not sending my kid till September. This thing's going on. And there's other parents that have been saying since September, I want my kid in the classroom. So it's, there's opinions like noses. Everybody has one. And I respect that. But we got to get the kids back in.
I agree. I totally agree. And it's a big part of the revitalization of business and getting people back to work, because people can't work if their kids are home. Right. So that goes hand in hand with this, because it's been a lot of work done in Quincy. There's been a lot of development. We've got office parks. We've got businesses, large one across the street from us here at South Shore. At Stop and Shop. And we need to get those people back to the office so that they can then start going to the businesses and shopping and revitalizing some of the retail businesses. So that's an important part of it that some people don't get, as well as the parents need a break. They want their kids to go to school for the right reasons, but they also need their kids to go to school so that they can go to work and provide for them.
That's going to be very interesting going forward to look at, some of these habits, are they here forever? I know there's a lot of corporate people that have seen they can get as much done with people working from their laptop at home than necessarily in the office. So, that's going to be very interesting going forward. And I think there's some benefits to that if we work together to ease congestion on the expressway. Perhaps there's certain days where that may happen. But the flip side, as you know, small businesses will suffer because the sandwich shops and coffee shops and all those places depend on that foot traffic from those folks in the commercial buildings coming out to grab lunch or whatever. So that stuff's going to be very interesting to follow in the coming months.
Yeah. You talked about how much progress the city's made since the pandemic, the positives. And that's what I want to talk about now as we move through this session is the stuff you and I have talked often about the fact that the city never shut down. The city kept working. They didn't shut down construction projects. There's been a lot of work going on the public side in terms of planning and getting things in line for public infrastructure improvements, roads, bridges, buildings, and then also on the private side. So maybe we can shift and talk about what the city has accomplished, what's been done. I mean, there's a lot of people that haven't been downtown in a year. They haven't had a reason to come downtown. They're not in here. Maybe they're staying away from restaurants and stuff. So talk about the public and the private projects that you've been working on and how much progress we've made in this past year.
Sure. Well, as we talked about, first of all, early on when this thing started, we brought people together. Tim, you were in several meetings representing the business community. We brought all the medical community together for meetings, a lot of great minds in government, and trying to figure out the path going forward, both to keep City Hall and services going, as well as to try to help keep business going. And I wasn't waiting for the governor or the president or Dr. Fauci to tell us what to do, although their guidance was helpful. I belong to a Metro Mayor's group, and I was astonished on how some of those leaders just froze in that aspect of leadership. They're waiting for someone to tell them what to do. So, I don't need somebody to hold my hand. I am smart enough to know to put plenty of smart people in the room. Let's figure this out and attack it. And I think we did that. We didn't close City Hall. I didn't stop having meetings. Some of them by Zoom, but I've been doing in-person meetings, respecting the guidelines of social distancing and so forth. But there's been a lot of progress made, and there's going to be a number of major initiatives before the City Council this spring. The one that is there now on the public side is the public safety, namely police new headquarters. The original station was built in 1924. The Mayor McCauley put an addition on in the 80s, which really was a terrible decision on how it was done. I know it's easy to look back and criticize, but if you go back 100 years, 150 years, public projects were done very, very well. Look at the old schools, for example. They're built to last, but you get into the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and into the 80s, the public construction wasn't great. So the price tag's a little high on this, but I look at it, this is a 100-year building, not a 25-year building, not a 50-year building, a 100-year building. And there's a lot of moving pieces to this, and that's why the cost is such. We got to move the animal shelter. We got to move Father Bill's shelter. We had to buy some properties around the station to make this work. We're going to be doing improvements to C Street and Southern Artery and Field Street and Broad Street, because the traffic volume in that area is, as you know, 80% of the South Shore comes up 3A and cuts through the city to get to Boston. So it's more than just a building. It's a civil engineering project. It's a traffic engineering project, as well as putting us in a good place with a building. I'm criticized sometimes for being a big spender, and I view it as more as I am a big investor. And we do these things, we're going to do it right. We're going to make the investment so that it lasts for a long time. You look at the more recent construction, the old Votech, that was horrible. The police station, the building I'm in is no bargain, and it's going to need millions of dollars of work if we don't do anything to this building in the coming years. So let's do it right. So that one's going to be before the council. I talked at my inauguration last time about a new college building, and I'll be talking more about that. We are going to be going to the city council with a proposal to construct a new building. Quincy College is important to the city, not just because of its tradition, but that's important. But it also adds to the economy. I've had a study done by Dr. Goodman out of Dartmouth of what it means to the economy of the city. And then the third piece, and I think this will be interesting with the city council, they've had a lot to say, rightfully so, on the social justice issues and equity issues. Well, Quincy College serves a lot of the demographic that needs that lift, and 25 to 30% of that population of the college is minority, and they're from some interesting backgrounds that need that help. So for all the right reasons, we need to do this. What's interesting, and not to belabor the point, but to make it connected to people that may be watching. The college has been at Kemper Insurance in North Quincy. They've been on Temple Street. They've been in downtown. They're at President's Place. They go by lease. And if President's Place said tomorrow, we're not going to renew in 2 years, where do they go for 100,000 square feet in the other red line? That's a tough order. Number two is the lease goes up every year. So the budget goes up every year. The tuition goes up every year. So we put together a building project that instead of them paying rent, they pay the city a rent that pays the debt service on the new building. And that debt service number stays the same for the next 30 years. So now they can model and budget. It's a win-win. And they really need a home base. The only way to cement the future of the college is for them to give a permanent home. And this will do that. And I'm looking at including in that the first several floors to be City Hall use. The building that I'm in goes away. Part of the footprint of the building becomes part of the park. The back part of the building becomes part of a new parcel that can be developed over the tracks, which will make up for far more of the property tax loss from the building we'd be buying next door, the Monroe building, to build the building. So a lot of moving parts to it, but it makes fiscal sense. It makes moral sense in my view. And it'll be a tall number, but I think it makes sense, and we can show the plan how it pays for itself over time, which is huge. This building that I'm in needs a roof, needs all new mechanicals, needs an elevator. The windows are failing, doesn't have a fire suppression system. So, we're gonna have to either spend 10 or 15 million on this building and still have an old 70s building, or we can be part of a new building next door, as I said, with the police station, that'll be built for 100 years. I think these are good investments.
It's a debate that's never ended. We were part of it back in the 90s when Mayor Sheets proposed building a new Quincy High School, a new Central Middle School, and a new Sterling Middle School. And again, that debate about, maybe taking some of the old, some of the new, putting it together, trying to fix it for the short term rather than the long term. Fortunately, that argument failed. And a lot of it had to do with our experience with the police station. Putting additions on buildings and making them new and then trying to retrofit buildings. It happened with North Quincy High School back in the 70s. And we're fortunate that the decisions that your administration before you made that put investments, $100 million into the Quincy High School, $50 million into Central and Sterling. A lot of money, but now you've got three beautiful buildings that will be there forever. I mean, Quincy High School's been around for at least a decade. It still looks brand new.
Well, and on that point, as many folks realize, school system has a direct relationship to property values. And, if you have a strong school system, you get strong property values, the investment continues in the city. If it goes the other direction, then all hell breaks loose. Some people say to me, why all the changes? Why all the changes? An older city, you can't stand still, either going up or you're going down. And I'm not being critical, but there's a lot of older cities that are not doing well economically right now, and they're sputtering, and so therefore they don't get the new growth, they don't get those resources they can put into education or fire or police services and so forth. So, as you know, it's a balance, but you're certainly familiar with what went on. And that was an interesting thing with Quincy High. There was some city council saying we should keep that and make it into a cultural center, and I remember sitting down with Peter O'Connell, who's obviously had great success and understands the economics of buildings. And I said, Peter, what would you advise me to do? He said, get rid of it. When you do the numbers from what you're going to spend to rehab it, I know you're still going to have an old building. You got to light it. You got the custodian. You don't have parking, et cetera, et cetera. And he was right. We made the decision. Though some people that attended Quincy High that might have an attachment to the building, it was the right decision. And now we're looking at another direction on the cultural center, which is going to be exciting. I think we'll have some announcements next few months. So, you balance it all. But at the end of the day, every investment we're making now matters going forward. It's not sexy to talk about new water mains and sewer mains and utilities underground, but if we don't do those things, we can't grow. Never mind maintain. Look at what's happened in Texas. I mean, I don't get on that road, but we got to invest in our infrastructure, and then infrastructure covers a lot of areas. You don't get political credit for fixing sewer and water lines, but you can't do those other things if you're not investing in them. Yeah,
well, and you get the blame when they break, as we're seeing.
Sure.
You don't make the investment, whoever's in office will pay the price. So you talked about the city's changing, and obviously we're seeing that, and that's part of the plan to fund public infrastructure and new buildings that our citizens require. So let's talk about that. Since we last met on this show, a new 15-story building just opened up next to us here in Quincy Square, Peter O'Connell's new One Chestnut Place. That's a new building that if people haven't been downtown, they should come downtown and look at it. If they can't see it from where they are. Talk about that project in relationship to everything else that's happening in the downtown as we're dealing with the pandemic?
Sure. A funny side story, because there was one of our gadflies who would be at every public meeting over the last 15 years, speaking against every decision we made about the downtown, sold their property for big money just outside the downtown. Everything we've been doing has added value to everything around it. Peter's investment in building is a handsome building. You can see it from all parts of the city, but when you're walking around it, it doesn't feel like a very tall building at all, because it's the architecture is terrific. We put green space around it. It fits. It fits in nicely. So we're going to be talking a little bit more over the next few weeks about a couple of other major buildings in the downtown that will exceed Peter's height. And if I said from day one, even when I was running in 07, the place for the density, the place for the development is in the downtown. And I also said the shipyard, and I also said Crown Colony at the time. But this is where the density belongs. We're not going to put a 10, 15, or 20-story building in Marymount and Beechwood Knoll, or even in Wollaston Center. It wouldn't fit. But certainly in Quincy Center, it fits. And as the old saying, they're not making more land. We got to go up. We're getting rid of blocks and blocks of what were 2-story buildings that just don't have the value. They don't contribute to the economy. They were fine in their day, but it's a different world, and we need to go up. And there's going to be some exciting projects. We've got some new investors coming into the city that have seen the value of investing here. Obviously, the homegrown guys of the O'Connells and Galvins and Quincy Mutual got us going. But the secret's out. For all the right reasons, people want to invest in the city of Quincy. And you get the transportation, the red line, you get the highway access. It's a safe city, great school system, great open spaces. You got the waterfront for all the right reasons. And it's going to be very exciting over the next few months. We're going to have a lot to talk about for Quincy Center. People are going to be blown away.
Excellent. And there's another plan to do some of the same things in Wollaston going forward, an overlay district where you'll be able to, again, combine parcels and fix some of those blights right now. So those empty parcels based on a fire on Newport Ave and the tearing down of the old Wollaston Theater. Exactly.
The idea is to give us some tools that allows us to generate the interest and investment in Wollaston Center. Won't be the magnitude or intensity of Quincy Center as it shouldn't be. You're surrounded by neighborhoods, but there's plenty of room for improvement in that area. And we crossed Newport Avenue and included that block, which I think could be awarded the ugliest block in Quincy, between Brook and Beale and Arlington and Newport. There's like 13 different owners. It's an old, partly industrial, partly residential. It's a mess. So by doing the overlay and the URDP and giving us some of the same tools that we have at Quincy Center, it allows us to get things moving down there. And I think it's time. Wollaston Center is quite tired. It's interesting because 15 years ago, the Norfolk Downs area, North Quincy Business District, was dying, and Wollaston was thriving. And it's flipped, and it kind of flipped on its own. A lot of foot traffic in North Quincy, very few vacant stores. It's vibrant. You walk through there, well, pre-pandemic was vibrant, and I assume that'll bounce back in the spring. So a lot of work to do in Wollaston, but we're making good progress.
Excellent. All right, we do have some questions, so I'm going to read them to you and then see if we can get some answers to these people. So first question was, did Manat get vaccine this week for the 65 and older groups? And if so, can people get appointments for that?
Yes, they're still taking appointments to schedule, and as they get the vaccines, they schedule the people in. So I believe the answer is yes, but this thing changes by the hour. The distribution changed by the Baker administration, what was announced last week. We haven't quite figured out exactly how it may interrupt the flow because, we're fortunate that we have a health entity in Quincy like Manat we could partner with. Some towns and cities don't have someone they could partner with. So they were getting the direct vaccines to the health department or through the health department. Now that's changing, and that's not coming through the health department. So Manat right now is the game, along with these other potential distribution sites. But we'll keep people posted on the website and getting it out on social media.
And you don't need to go on the state's website to apply for a Manat vaccination, right? You go on the city's website, or they have their own?
That's correct. They have their own for their own patient portal, but by partnering with them, we opened up the call center with the phone number and the website for people to help, because we know a lot of seniors, particularly 75 and over, aren't really in tune with getting on the computer. So we knew the old-fashioned phone was best for them. And we had people manning the phones, actually putting them in and setting up the appointments or calling them back. I think it worked quite well. And that's why if there's a legitimate criticism, I think, on the rollout with the state is, I don't know why they didn't look at MEMA and look at the magnitude of what this would be to help them get this thing rolling in the correct way out of the box without the thing crashing and so forth. So a lot of work to be done, but I think we're in a better place than a lot of other communities.
And Quincy, so you can call, the number is on the website, quincyma.gov.
Yeah, I can get a clarification for that maybe before we finish. And
Okay.
I'll get
Okay.
that to you.
All right. So, and then we'll post it on our website as well, too. Another question from Diane. Will Quincy be partnering with other communities in Norfolk County to get vaccines to tier 2? I don't know what that is, tier 2 workers who might live in Quincy but work in another town?
Well, I'll go back to my comment earlier. So we're also working with Boston Scientific at their location and potentially the Lowe's site, which is now rented by the MBTA. It's going to be owned by the MBTA. It's going to eventually become a bus barn as a potential regional site. So those two sites could become the regional sites for South Shore, Norfolk County, whatever the state deems. At the end of the day, it's the state's call. They're controlling the vaccines and how it'll be distributed. But I think we've given them a plan to help the regional effort, and I think that it's probably going to have. I think it'll be well responded to, and I think we'll end up pulling something off. So all those people, yeah, they'd be included.
Good.
Sure.
We got a question from Facebook. What is and you touched on this, but maybe we can go in a little more depth. What's your vision for Wollaston, Beale Street? What are you envisioning in terms of the future if you could look out 5 years or 10?
Well, in the development world, and Tim, you know this term, we heard a lot about 5 over podium. So those people that are in construction business understand that 5 over podium, so retail, something on the bottom with residential above. And, I'm not happy with 5 over podium for Quincy Center, but some 5 over podium in the Wollaston area would be appropriate. For example, the old Barry's Deli block, Newcomb Farms block, it backs up to 4 families and then it drops down to 2 families and singles. So you definitely want to have a transition. For example, in that block, that could be a 5 over podium. And then you're transitioning down. You don't want to put a 10 or 12 story building up against a residential neighborhood like that. Right. But across the street on Beale Street with the old Wollaston Theater, perhaps that's 8 or 10 stories. It's not up against a residential area. And that could be some residential, again, with business. As you all know more than I, and you could probably, each of you give me a lesson on it, the retail world's changed forever, even pre-pandemic, but now with the pandemic. So yes, the goal is to get some mom and pops and boutique shops and certainly more restaurants and places to feed. And there'll always be the need for the cleaners and the hairdresser, et cetera, et cetera. But, that retail world is not quite what it was many, many years ago. So that will be kind of, as we go along, we'll be figuring that out. But, just some of the buildings are so tired. You get vacancies down there. We need to generate some new investment and some new interest. And we are in discussions with various folks on that. A number of people are definitely following up on the publicity that's been out there about the overlay district, and I think we'll see some good changes. So, we've got a citizens group together down there. I think, Jim, you're serving on it. Yes. With it. So a citizens advisory committee will help figure it out going forward. And so we'll look forward to their thoughts.
I have one more question, and I'll let you wrap up and get back to work. We're running up against time here. Although if anyone has any questions, you can ask them now. I've seen it because I'm here downtown all the time, and I think people might be surprised at the city work that's being done behind Hancock Street in the old Ross parking lot, I think it was called, that area. It's a massive undertaking and it's a lot of work, but maybe you can describe exactly what's going in there. We're seeing new streetlights go in, new roads being built, and
Sure.
And I'm assuming a lot of infrastructure going into the ground. What will that look like when it's done, and what's the reason for the investment?
Okay. Before I do that, I just got slipped a note by my great staff. Thank you, Chris Walker. So the city's pre-registration continues through the city's website. People leave their information. They'll get a call back as the slots open up. You can also go directly to Manet's website, www.manetchc.org. or you can call 617-376-1470 for phone assistance. And yes, you will get a live person answering on that. So having said that, hopefully that answers the question from earlier. Yes, so those people that haven't been in the downtown, what used to be the back side, it was always referred to as the other side, the back side, the side near the tracks of Hancock Street, is going to be a new front door to Hancock Street. And, you know, the state, MassDOT, thanks to the governor, we're building that $10 million bridge. We, as a city, are building out the 2 new roads that connect the bridge to the old Cliveden Street. That's going to cross Hancock Street and connect to the garage. That will be Dunford Drive, named for General Dunford. And the cross street between Hannon Parkway and Granite Street, which is all of this stuff is being built as we speak, is called McConville Way, which is another general who is serving us pretty well right now in this country. And we do upgrading all the utilities. So all these new buildings that we're talking about, all the utilities will be in place for them as we get under construction. So we don't have to dig up our streets over and over and over again. And it costs money to do that. So this district improvement financing, DIF, the city has become a model in the Commonwealth for how best to use the DIF. And without getting too complicated, the DIF, the district improvement financing money, comes out of the new growth, the new taxes in the urban district in the downtown, in that zoning area. So we can pledge that going forward to pay off the bonds to pay for the infrastructure. If you don't do the infrastructure, you're not going to get the private investment. You need the public investment to make the private investment happen. So the block between Hancock and what will now be McConville Way, the old Ross Way, we're going to be talking in a few weeks about 2 major buildings on that block. The city's going to be talking about taking some buildings and creating some more green space, open space. I don't believe every lot should be a 20-story building. I think we need to have the connections between Hancock, McConville Way. We need to create those pocket parks, if you will, for some places to get out and breathe. And some people walk their dogs, some people to have a cigarette, whatever it may be. Of course, in the pandemic, just to get out to get fresh air. So that's all part of the master plan. The medical office building, Fox Rocks talked about in the past. I think we're going to see some exciting news relating to that in the coming months. I've been in touch with both the chairman of the board of Brigham Women's Mass General, as well as Mr. Hale, who obviously runs Fox Rocks. So there's going to be some good stuff going on once we get the public infrastructure behind us this coming. And by the way, May 15th, we've circled, it's Armed Forces Day, is the day we're going to be dedicating that bridge and park to the generals. There's 16 generals from Quincy since the Revolutionary War. We're going to be honoring all of them, but we'll be singling out 7, 5 of whom are alive that will be there, including Dunford, McConville, and Sullivan, who are all 4 stars. Dunford was chairman of the Joint Chiefs. So I say that because if there's folks out there that are veterans or no veterans that either were from Quincy that went into the service or now live in Quincy, who also were a veteran, we'd like them to reach out to our office to get them included on the honorary committee. This is a day yes, we're honoring the generals, but we're really honoring all the men and women in uniform who serve. It's about the living, though. This isn't a memorial. It's not Memorial Day. So we're asking for those veterans who are still with us to join us. So call our office at 617-376-1990. Talk to Mary Mulvey, get your name on the list for that. We're up to about 200 names, but we should be at 500 names anyway for the city. So it's going to be a great. Now, obviously, with the pandemic, we'll see where we are May 15th. I'm hoping we're going to be able to pull it off. And that may be the first public event for the city coming out of the box. We're certainly planning for Flag Day in June as well. But that whole area will no longer be the alley. It will no longer be the back door or the rear end, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be significant new first class, both office and residential building. It'll be beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you keeping the language clean for our guests over here. But I appreciate the conversation. I mean, those are the questions I have. I'll give you the last few minutes to sort of sum up this past year. It's been a challenge, but I think the city has, in my estimation, anyways, met the challenge. And I guess now we're looking to go forward.
Indeed. Again, my shout out to, anything bad that happens, it always brings out the good in people, right? And I've seen that time and time again, whether it was, the YMCA supporting us with moving the homeless population around, so we could spread out the folks so that they were less susceptible to the virus. And I could go on and on. The food pantry stepping up, Quincy Community Action, but Cynthia, Sarah, and the team at Manor stepping up and partnering with us every step of the way. You and the chamber stepping up, working with us in every way, and advising us along the way, getting that money into people's hands, waiving the license fees, doing the outdoor seating. I mean, I think we did everything we could possible to try to keep business going. And I'm certainly proud of that. Then you go back to Manor, you go down to that site at 180 Old Colony Ave. There's a number of Quincy residents, retired nurses, and folks in the medical field that are volunteering their time to help these seniors get through the process. It's just remarkable. This Quincy is a very special place, not because I'm the mayor, but there's a spirit here that I have found over my time here that I don't see anywhere else. And so I'm so proud and honored to serve as the mayor of the city. I'm proud of the efforts that we've had that have dealt with the pandemic. And I am bullish on the future of the city. We didn't miss a beat. The planning goes on, the execution goes on, and there's going to be an awful lot of good stuff happening this spring and summer economically in Quincy.
Excellent. We're looking forward to it. Tom, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, everybody.
And for the work you've done in the past year and your team has done. So we really appreciate it. It means a lot to us. You've had the business communities back from the beginning, and we cannot say that about every mayor in Massachusetts or elected official. So we very much appreciate it and look forward to working with you as we go forward. I think
so much.
2021 is going to be a good year, so we're looking forward to it as soon as possible. So thank you again for your time. We really appreciate you folks tuning in, watching this live on Facebook, on our website. This is being recorded, so we'll post it on our website, along with the information that the mayor gave us for how to get in contact if you are 65 and over and qualify for a vaccine, how to get on that list and get that vaccine as soon as possible and get ready for it. So again, thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Thank you all
everybody.
for tuning in, for watching this, and we appreciate your support as well. Very much appreciate it all the way through. Have a great day and a great weekend. We'll talk soon.